You're listening to Science and Saucery, a show dedicated to adding life to your years. And now your hosts, registered dietitian Juliana Hever and scientist Ray Krocks.
Welcome.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm great, Raymond James. How are you doing?
I'm doing great too. We're actually recording video for the first time.
Yikes.
It makes it a lot more complicated.
Yes.
And I don't have my amazing son Danner here to switch for us today, so
you got this.
I'm having to do this all by myself. So that's,
I have faith in
hopefully
you.
We can get it done. So really interesting week with being holed up. It's kind of fun when we looked at the stores and looked at the fact that what we buy in the stores all the time is plentiful, and the kind of food that most Alabamians buy seems to be scarce. You know, we're number 5 on the obesity list, but you know, hooray for those other states because you know, it's really amazing that you can see it right there on the grocery shelves.
Yes, indeed. And I think we often get comments when we're checking out about our healthy cart.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, they know us well because we did our whole cookbook out of a Publix, which is really great.
Yeah.
And so it's funny that they see us, they're always asking and always inquiring.
And special ordering us vegetable broth and, you know, and plant milk.
Porcini mushrooms.
Mm-hmm. It's so cool.
But yeah, so today it's going to be fun because we have a really amazing couple, a guest. They have become sort of a YouTube sensation recently. And I remember when I first saw on Twitter, I remember seeing this thing and they'll give us all the details, but you know, it was an enormous, you know, the 800-pound couple, you know, and I remember seeing them facing each other and I was tagged in it with Penn Jillette and Kevin Smith, and it just gave me chills because, you know, Penn's been keeping up with lots of people who have lost weight, and a lot of them reach out to us, and of course some of them are our clients, but lots of them aren't. And it always feels good to have somebody reach out that way, and you know that there's an inspiration. But wow, what's been really great, and I must say now, and we'll talk about it a little bit with them on this, but now they did a review on our cheese sauce, and we'll talk about that together, but it was really good. So
yeah, I've been hearing about them for a long time. A lot of people have said, oh, have you seen Krocks in the kitchen? And this was kind of like the impetus where I actually dug in, and I was so excited. You guys are so inspiring, and we're really happy to have you on today.
So let's welcome today Brian and Jessica Krocks. Welcome to our show.
Hello.
It's fun we're recording video, but at the same time, this will go out as an audio podcast, but it's really fun to have you guys on. So, you know, tell us this crazy story. Tell us how you ended up, you know, on YouTube as cooks.
Well, I can tell you that we were in this lifestyle like well before we actually ended up posting on YouTube. And but it all started because I watched a Joe Rogan podcast where he interviewed Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith, you know, had a heart attack, and then he lost a bunch of weight, and he was talking about doing the 2 weeks of potatoes and stuff that he learned from Penn Jillette and his book. So because Penn did the whole thing with the potatoes, I was like, man, I really need to change my life, because at that time, I weighed 514 pounds.
Wow.
And you weighed?
I was 285.
285,
wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like, I was jokingly what I refer to as a high-functioning fat person. I mean, I could still walk around. I could still do everything fairly normally, actually. I mean, I wasn't like anywhere near bedridden or even really being like inactive in any kind of way. So like, but I was still really, really heavy, and I'm getting older now. I'm 37 now. I was 35 when we started. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it to 40. Like, I honestly feel like I'm going to die in the next few years if I don't really change something. And so when I saw the interview with Kevin Smith, who talked about Penn Jillette, and then I found out about Penn Jillette talked about you, Ray, and then we ended up getting Penn's book, and we read it, and we're just like, this is incredible, and especially for me, because Penn and I actually have a lot in common. We're both really tall guys. We were both overweight. I was really, really overweight, right. And just I've been watching him for years. I watched Penn and Teller's BS and several of the specials and stuff like that. So it's like I was a big fan of his to begin with. And so to see that he actually did it, I was like, well, if he did it, I can do it. And then I was like, well, I might as well drag Jessica along with me as well. So I came home and told her.
Yeah, he told me, he's like, hey, I want to eat potatoes for 2 weeks. I think this could work. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's a thing. So, I mean, at that point, I was just desperate to do anything to get him, obviously I was a lot overweight as well, but he was to the point where I was afraid that he wasn't going to, like he said, live to see 40 if he didn't do something about it. So I was basically willing to do anything.
Did you guys have any diagnoses at this point? Like everything health-wise? Did you have anything pop up in the doctor and the labs?
So I actually hadn't been to a doctor in pretty much over a decade. I think I went to maybe one doctor one time in between, and it was basically just a checkup, and he was like, well, you're okay. You're just really overweight. And in fact, he didn't actually know how much I weighed at that time, because they didn't have a scale that went up high enough. So that was
That's
disheartening.
Crazy.
So that was bad. And then, but I didn't have anything. Like I wasn't, as far as I knew, I wasn't pre-diabetic or diabetic. And I didn't have any kind of heart conditions or anything of the sort. Like I said, I was a high functioning fat person. I could pretty much get away with anything. And I, felt like I could just keep going on that path for a good long while. But then all of a sudden I started thinking differently.
Yeah, and for me, I definitely had high blood pressure that was starting to kick in. My doctor had sent me home and wanted me to get my own blood pressure cuff so I could check my blood pressure at home and keep an eye on it. It was definitely getting up there. I did have a blood test done that showed, I guess, the start of possibly fatty liver disease, but nothing else that I was like really diagnosed with or anything.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because having been along on the journey with, many people that have 100 pounds or more to lose, and then with you guys even more than that. It's, I lost 85, but it was not all at one time. So there was a section, and then I gained some back, and then I lost again. So it wasn't just at one fell swoop, but the realization that one has at that moment, like what you're saying, Brian, where you can't even step on the scale, or when it viscerally hits you just how much energy you're carrying around stored. Because even if you're normal weight, in the normal range, or even on the upper end of the normal range, 30 days without food is an easy thing to do for any person. Unless someone's really ill, they have enough storage on them at normal levels. And when you have this huge excess, I can't even imagine what it looks like looking forward. Did you guys just do it day by day, or was there a moment where you stopped and said, holy smokes, this is what I have in front of me?
Well, I mean, as far as the weight goes, like I really honestly didn't try to think about it too much. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really trying. I kind of always was just like a day-to-day person anyway. I never really thought about my future or, how I was going to be or how I was going to feel in the next few years, even in the next year, even. So yeah, for me, it was always just like a day-to-day thing. Like I never really cared about the future.
So you came home and you said, let's do potatoes for 2 weeks. I mean, I can't even imagine hearing that just out of the blue, Jessica. But so what happened? So you just went for it? Like, tell us the story.
So basically, the first thing I did was I got Penn's book. I ordered it on Amazon, and I was like, okay, I'm going to read this book and see what this is all about, because I don't know why we should take any kind of advice from a Vegas magician.
Exactly.
You shouldn't.
And so, and we tell people that all the time. We're like, don't take advice from us because we're literally getting our advice from,
we aren't experts.
from a Vegas magician. So no, basically I got the book, and so we decided to pick a date on the calendar. I think it was June 22nd, 2018. And we have a calendar we literally keep on our refrigerator. We circled that date. Actually, I think I drew a bunch of potatoes on it. And I just basically was like 14 days. I'm like, blocked it out. That's all we're eating is potatoes for those 14 days. And then I think we had about 2 weeks maybe to go through, and we tried to clear out everything that was in our pantry and freezer, and basically binge eat anything that we thought, if we're never going to eat any of this again.
Oh, wait. I'm
what
sorry
do we want?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, as the dietitian in me is so curious. So what was that? What was in your pantry? The before pantry?
One of my big things was Cheez-Its. I was obsessed with Cheez-Its. I could just eat a box of Cheez-Its, and I liked the spicy ones, and it literally made me sick.
No.
I had such bad heartburn, and I would eat a whole box, but I would just keep eating them. I don't remember what did we clear out that week?
We pretty much went through anything. There was some candy and stuff in there.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of stuff in the freezer.
I remember that.
I cleared out all the breakfast food items. So.
Yeah, he was big into eggs and everything, breakfast and all that kind of stuff. It was just a lot of junk, basically.
Yeah.
But our last meal, so we went to go shop for the potatoes, and we decided that we were going to have our last meal, right? Our final hurrah. That day we went to Chick-fil-A.
Extra pickles.
This is bad. This is very bad.
The funny part is, so while we were buying the potatoes, I was like, I need to buy something bad for later. And so I bought some dark chocolate toffee thing from Trader Joe's, and we showed the receipt in our very first YouTube video of us shopping for potatoes, and there's so many comments on that video now saying,
it's that's not a potato.
I've never seen the dark chocolate toffee variety of potato. And I was and we have to explain to them this was part of our binge eating, but we went to Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah, that was the big
we didn't
final
even
one.
go into the restaurant. We ordered, because honestly, at that point, we weren't really going out to eat a lot, because for me, it was kind of one of those, I had anxiety about going out to eat, because it was are we going to be able to get a table that Brian could fit in? Are they going to try to put us in a booth?
Gosh, I haven't thought about that side of it.
It's insane. Yeah.
All these things that are most people don't think about every day. My brain sort of stops at the belt extension on the plane. But Brian, this is so much for you. You took it to a whole new level.
Yeah, well, that's the thing for me, is that I didn't really care about the future before. I didn't care what people thought of me. I still don't care at all. Which is great for being on YouTube, because I get to see all of these really negative comments, and I'm just like, oh, that's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah,
delete.
And I might add there, to reinforce this, I might add that, when we talk about this, and we talk openly with our clients, we talk about our fat suit, and we talk about, it jiggling, and we have fun. We don't really get very empathetic when we're dealing with our clients one-on-one. We try, we don't care if someone's big or small, and that's why I think even I was able to have some influence on Penn. We've known each other for 20 years, but he knew, and I think he describes this a little bit in the book, but he knew that, my goal was, if he wanted help, I would help him, but I wasn't going to offer it or volunteer it, because I don't care. It doesn't matter. People obviously judge us if we have extra body fat or whatever. We go up and down like anybody else does, and our goal isn't being fitness models. So they judge us because we're giving out advice, and I can somewhat understand that, but this idea of us not caring, we love you when you're big, we love you when you're small, but there's a difference between that and the idea of what we are doing now often, which we're sensationalizing and promoting being big, and it was a health issue. So outside of the value, outside of how you felt, emotionally felt, outside of how people, what they would say or to perceive limits, there is a health issue here, and I feel like we've swept that under the table. And I love, as you guys are making these changes, as our clients are making these changes, people like Penn or Kevin or other people out there making changes, that we don't have to stigmatize it to point out that it is a health issue. You know, what started this in your mind is realizing, wait, I might have an issue, you know? So I think that's an important addition, because today it's almost become inflammatory to discuss the idea that weight I carried, the weight you guys carried. Juliana really was never overweight because she's been sort of a dietitian and a trainer since the beginning. But the idea that with the diet that ends up accumulating that extra weight also comes all of these other health issues.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I could see the writing on the wall when it came to that one. And that's the reason why we changed everything up for the diet. But
well, and even going back before that, so we had actually lost each at least 100 pounds before we got married.
Wow.
So
just diet and exercise like the normal way that everybody tells you to do.
Moderation.
Right.
I hate exercising, actually. I
Well, no, your life
going
was.
to a gym.
Look, hey, I'm going to bail you out here. Your life was exercise. I'll give any of those lean fitness models an extra 300 or 400 pounds to carry around in the gym, and all day, not just in the gym, but all day in the shower, in bed, on the commode, you know, cutting the grass, whatever you're doing, you know, throw an extra 300 pounds on your back and tell me it's not exercise. For some reason, if it's made out of fat, it doesn't count, but if it's made out of steel, it's called exercising. So I'll be backing you up on the anti-wiggling campaign.
Well, thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. But yeah, we lost the weight before just doing counting calories and going to the gym a few times a week. And
then we got married.
Then we got married, and that all stopped.
Yeah.
So I like to say we went on our honeymoon and we never came back.
Oh.
Because I looked pretty decent in my wedding photos though. So we got married in 2011, and I had lost over 100 pounds. I think I was down to about where I am right now, weight-wise, when we got married. And then I just put it all back on because we didn't teach ourselves anything new. Yeah. We just taught ourselves to use the reduced fat cheese and the, and reduce the portion sizes, but we
moderation.
Moderation. So when I read Penn's book, that was I connected so much. That was the first time that anybody had written anything about weight loss that I connected with on such a level that was just, even just listening to Ray, listening to you talk about stuff and listening to you guys on the podcast, it's the first time that I've heard anybody really connect with me on weight loss. And before that, it was all just like calorie counting and, whatever. So, yeah.
So back to Cheesecake Factory, and I have to laugh because I worked at Cheesecake Factory when I was in college. Nice. And so I know what's there. And it was the bread. So I'm curious what you guys got as your last meal, because a lot of our clients do a last meal thing too. We don't encourage it, but so I'm curious.
So chicken dish.
We got, the appetizer. Don't forget the fried mac and cheese balls.
Fried mac and cheese balls. That's right.
Start it all out. I think we got it was some kind of chicken dish. I would either go for the chicken parmesan or there was some other chicken dish that we ended up getting.
Like a flattened chicken dish with on a bed of pasta.
But then we each got our own piece of cheesecake. I got like a Godiva chocolate cheesecake, and I forget which one you got.
I probably got Oreo cookies and cream.
Yeah, you probably did.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I think the last bite I had on the end of that day was the Godiva chocolate cheesecake. But we actually weighed ourselves before. Did we weigh ourselves?
We weighed ourselves before the final day.
Before the final binge, because we knew we would be like gaining 10 pounds that day alone.
Yeah.
That was it. And then the next day we went to the potatoes. So Brian goes to church and I'm at home prepping potatoes, and he comes home and we eat our first meal of potatoes. And then he had to go to work because he was working at a radio station at the time, and he had to go. It was a Sunday, but he had to go run the board for the radio station. And he leaves. We're both just in horrible moods. I mean, it was just awful. And I literally left the house, walked to the grocery store. I was convinced I needed pizza. I walked by the pizza. We live it's literally a 5-minute walk from a grocery store. Walked by the pizza, walked around the store. I was trying to find something that I could eat because I was like, this is after one meal of potatoes. I was like, I can't do this. There's no way. I actually walked to, you wanted crazy bowls and wraps.
Yeah, I wanted
He was
crazy
at
bowls.
work like, I can't do this. I need something to eat. And so I was going to go get him crazy bowls and wraps and bring it. Somehow they were closed. And so I just took that as a sign and went back home and ate my potatoes.
I remember that night because at work I ended up drinking some black coffee, and that actually helped out quite a bit for some reason. And I felt a lot better after that. Weirdly enough, because I was working at a radio station at the time, I was talking to one of the hosts about doing the 2 weeks of potatoes. And so I was interviewed on the largest radio station in St. Louis about my first day of potatoes
On the first day.
day of potatoes. So that actually happened.
That's funny. And so, okay, so how, was it like, did you have major, I mean, going and diving in the night before and just putting that all in your system, and then the next day, it's like, I wonder, our clients usually on day 3 or 4 feel it. It's like, that's the most brutal 2 days of the whole experience for almost everyone, if there's going to be a bad experience. So did you guys feel that after 3 or 4 days, or how was your part of that?
So the funny thing is that like, we've definitely started to feel like a huge drop in energy. And I had to eat. I actually added an extra meal of potatoes because I literally, like, between lunch and dinner, like, I had to get something in there because I started crashing after just a few hours. And so I was like, I guess I'm just not eating enough. So I added more potatoes in, and then I around day 2, I think, is when I started feeling kind of bad, and Jessica felt okay on day 2.
We
and
kept flip-flopping.
Yeah, and then on day 3, she felt bad, and I felt okay. And then that kind of just kept happening.
It was weird. It was like any day I was having a bad day and I was ready to just call the whole thing quits, he was having a good day and would be like, no, let's stick with this.
Yeah, the exception being the last day.
Yeah, the last day
where
we
we couldn't actually, like, palate any more baked potatoes. And so we just stopped eating.
Yeah, we just stopped eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really amazing that we somehow have this idea that without swallowing, and somehow our energy levels are managed by swallowing. And this concept is so ingrained in us. And yet, even though you're carrying around all of this energy storage organ, right? The concept that you have to eat an energy storage organ from another animal or plant to burn your own energy storage organ just seems, because of what we are told, it just seems correct. But then when you stop and think about it, why did I ever think this way? Why did I ever believe? And it especially becomes apparent after very extended fasts, medically supervised, I might say, for everybody. Don't do all the crazy fasting stuff everyone's doing. But this is there a point at time when you realize, wait a minute, I actually have enough energy, and I'm swallowing really isn't part of that?
That's always the funny thing for me, because, like, I've taken courses in health and nutrition, and I researched things almost fanatically. It's kind of ridiculous. And so I knew the science that was out there about how this all worked. And so you kind of just keep telling yourself, like, I know how this should work, but this isn't how I feel.
Right.
And so, like, where's the disconnect here? Like, how can I merge what I know and how I feel into being the same thing? And unfortunately, that didn't really happen during those weeks, at least. Kind of happened after that. So
you finished the 2 weeks, you got through them, you didn't eat on the last day, and then what did you do? What was next? What was the next part of that?
So during the 2 weeks, we had no idea what we were going to do afterwards, because there's not, like, Penn's book just sort of lets you off and you're like, okay, what do I do next? So I was literally combing through tweets between, like, people who had tweeted at Ray, people who tweeted at Penn, and asked, hey guys, what do I do after I eat potatoes? Like, I was combing for any kind of information I could find. And the only thing that I found, I think it was actually your tweet, Ray, that I read. And you said, because everyone was like, Ray, where's your book? Where's your guide of how to do this? And so I think you had said something about Eat to Live. and to somebody. And so that I just latched onto that, and I ordered a copy of Eat to Live. I read it. We got to the 6-week plan for maximum weight loss in it, or whatever he calls it, and just sort of started using that as our guide.
Yeah.
And the idea there obviously is because I wasn't a registered dietitian, whereas our resident plant-based dietitian, Juliana Hever, is. And one of the things I did in the early days is, I didn't start out to try to be some diet guru. I was just I was sick. Type 2 diabetic, and I did what they said, and that wasn't working. And I was doing exactly what it said. And sometime after I got my midlife crisis, California girl catching calorimeter, because she appreciates it more than she appreciates a car, in the garage.
That's right.
But anyway, sometime after that, as I'm measuring these things, and obviously it is matching with the science. I'm not seeing contradictions, but when Penn and I talked a lot about, he said, "Are you okay with me talking about this?" Because obviously at that point I had clients and we worked them through there, and I really didn't want to give diet advice. I still really don't publicly. In fact, I dissuade everybody, if you guys well know, I dissuade everybody from eating potatoes for 2 weeks for other reasons, but just because we really want them to eat food. But at that time, we didn't have the second editions of the Idiot's Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition. We also didn't have our Healthspan Solution book, and I didn't have a registered dietitian. And so, she can legit give advice. I can't. I can tell people how to cook. I can give them recipes, et cetera. Same kind of situation you guys are in. So at the time, I wasn't being quiet because I was trying to hold a secret, but I didn't want people to get in the situation you were in where they jump in and do the potatoes, which, Penn tells what the joke was, what the original joke was about this and why we did this. And there's some other things too, but that match, like what's going on in oxidative priority and what's going on with metabolic winter. But truly, what we wanted to make sure that we did was I wanted them to get guided in to something that was out there that was legit. And Joel Furman's Eat to Live was what I originally followed. He probably was the most scientific of the books that were out at that time. And this would be, say, 2009. I started November 23rd, 2009. And
I almost got upset because my book was pretty damn scientific, and then
but it came
I
in
realized
2011,
it was,
right?
Yeah, you're safe.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I do have an original copy of her book with the old style cover, the original,
the very
cover.
first cover.
So you can't get me on
no,
that.
I know,
right? But no, so Eat to Live was out there, and I really wanted people to follow that, and obviously Joel and I are very good close friends, and so. It wasn't that, but it's really now what we have, which is just fantastic, is we're able to take this in a whole new direction with the Healthspan Solution and with our second edition's Idiot's Guide, where we are integrating our science and our new stuff to their platform. And so, just to back up what you're saying, and sort of give a little reason why we don't want people just to launch off in potatoes is exactly that. We won't get there. And what we would rather them do is pick up any one of these cookbooks and just start eating plants. And now you guys have moved into that space. And I think you're seeing what those results can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the crazy thing is people ask us all the time, and it's the most, I hate being asked this question. They'll ask us, should I do the 2 weeks of potatoes? I'm thinking about doing this. Should I do the 2 weeks of potatoes? And I am always the first one to say, first of all, don't listen to us, because we are just goofy people who are just sharing what we did. And we did actually, one of our videos, I think like one of our second or third video was a video where we talk about how stupid it was, doing it, and people get mad at us in the comments on that video.
They're like, how dare you?
Because they
like potatoes are the perfect food.
It's interesting, but people have to understand, like, I can't give medical advice, so I literally am never going to say to anybody, yes, I recommend you eat 2 weeks of potatoes.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know if we'd be here without having eaten the 2 weeks of potatoes, because we needed a line in the sand. We needed that like drastic, thing. And
I tell people that, like, I lost 25 pounds during those 2 weeks. Jessica lost 20 pounds during those 2 weeks. But the physiological reaction to what we did was all well and good, but it was the psychological reaction to what we did that really galvanized us into what we started after that. Mm-hmm. Because it's like we went down so low on like food tasting, you know, because obviously it's bland potatoes, and then it's like anything up from there though is much easier to do. So like the 6-week plan for Eat to Live was super easy compared to the 2 weeks of potatoes. And so for me, like the psychological aspect of what we did was important for us. It doesn't work for everybody, but for us, like it really honed in what we needed to do and how to change, and it convinced us that we could easily change.
Yeah, and what we do with our clients, we have people eat potatoes. It's no secret. That's, you know, Penn was describing a situation, and we use it in a bigger psychological context. And the truth is, it absolutely was a joke. I think the funniest thing is one of the people that understands or understood at the time, who then became, you know, big in promoting like the potato hack. You know, he was on my blog back in the day in the hypothermics. You know, if you go back, you can find the comments. But my point was really simple. At that time, I had just come out of the fog of what I would call the Gary Taubes delusion of the idea that this carbohydrate insulin hypothesis of gaining weight, that carbs make you fat. You guys know that we don't use protein, carbs, and fat in discussing food. And that's a big departure from what everybody else does. But as I was coming out of that fog where I really believed that that was the issue, remember, I didn't come from this from an ideological perspective. I came from it just like you. It was a health thing, and I had tried the other thing. I got the fattest in my entire life after Atkins, and I have a pretty good scientific reason now of probably why that occurred. But the point was, all of these people at the time were going on and on and on about carbohydrates, and I'm thinking, okay, if carbohydrates make you fat, okay, smarty pants. You know, I at that point I already had a calorimeter. I already knew the answers to these questions, but I started putting them out there. I said, great, so eat some rice and potatoes exclusively for 2 weeks. Don't add anything to it. I want someone to get fat. And then what did they do? They went and jumped over onto Mark Sisson's Daily Apple and started presenting it like they've discovered something new, when all they were doing is repeating. Went on to write a book about it. Again, it's crazy. They made a lot of money off of it. But the point, don't
you know that carbs are sugar? It's just sugar.
Just sugar turns to sugar. It all turns to sugar. Yeah. So what ended up happening is, and it's true, Penn tells the story in there, which is true. You know, when he does Cup and Balls, and if you guys haven't heard that story, go read his story. It's good. But he has Cup and Balls. They do Cup and Balls with, you know, Penn and Teller style, with clear cups and aluminum foil as their balls. And then at the end, the joke is it's a goddamn potato. And eventually it became a baseball, but nothing was more, you know, a goddamn potato. And I just used to watch him. I'd seen their show hundreds of times. And just seeing him say it's a goddamn potato, I can just hear it in my head now, ringing. And it was just funny to watch all of these people who primarily were coming over from maybe Tim Ferriss's, because I was in 4 Hour Body at that point, you know, they told the story. So they were coming over from that place. And it was funny to see one by one, all these people add starchy foods back to their diet and eliminate the fatty foods, and then see these results that they weren't getting on the other thing. Now, what we eventually are able to describe with the food triangle and oxidative priority is that you actually can get results on either side. So there are many ways to lose weight, right? But the real question is how not to gain it. You know, that you guys even said this earlier, and I let that comment go by, but I want to reinforce it now that you said, Jessica, we had lost 100 pounds before, and then, you know, we gained weight back. And so this was my experience too. I can't tell you how many hundreds of pounds I lost and gained back, but it was the last decade that I didn't gain it back. I'm at the weight where I lost from 2008. So, you know, that requires a radical shift in lifestyle. And so anyone listening and hearing this and being ecstatic and motivating to jump in potatoes, you would be well advised to just grab, if you want to, and I'm going to push our book, but you grab our cookbook or any one of these most of these plant-based cookbooks, certainly ones by Juliana and I, this is her 5th book, and pick a recipe and start eating, because those changes that you found, while they do kind of come on a little bit more rapidly with the potatoes, they come on by not eating the other food. And I think this will be a question I have for you guys. How much have you deviated since you started?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we've done actually pretty well. So how long have we been doing this now? It'll be, I guess, 2 years.
It's almost
in
2
June.
years.
2 years in June. Yeah.
So yeah. So I think in the first year we were super good at sticking with the 6-week plan guidelines from Eat to Live. We were pretty strict about it, and then we sort of started adapting it into what fit us best. And, over time, obviously, we knew how much we could eat and still lose weight. Like, even to this day, like, I know if I eat a certain amount of certain thing in a certain day, I won't lose weight that day. It's like, just, you can calculate it. Yeah. And so, we've definitely, so in the beginning, we would do our rare and appropriate, mostly when we traveled. I think the first one was around your birthday in August. We went to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And we definitely ate some bad stuff there.
Rare and appropriate is people and places, not time between events.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it was like his birthday. And so we tried to balance it out. That was our first time traveling with this lifestyle. And so we had no idea what we were doing. We've definitely taken it too far on certain trips. We went to, I think, not this past Christmas, but the year before, we went to Louisville over like a course of 4 or 5 days and just absolutely like ate horribly the entire time. And we felt so bad, and we gained, I don't even know, probably 10 or 15 pounds a piece at least. Of course, it came off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But we did a little chart of our weight loss. And there's like and then we told people we would eventually tell them what happened in December, because it was kind of like it just kind of went off the rails. But I would say 99.9% of the time we're sticking to our diet, as we call it.
Yeah.
But then, the last few months I've gotten off track a little bit, and I kind of drag Brian down with me when I do that. But now I've been back on track for the last 2 weeks. And so it's an evolving thing.
Yeah.
So how did you evolve to putting this on YouTube and inspiring so many people? Like, how did that happen?
Well, we ended up recording footage from those 2 weeks of potatoes, and we kind of like, we'd always watched YouTubers and stuff like that. And we were like, yeah, we should start a channel one of these days. We just didn't know what the content would be. And then we started losing weight. I started developing recipes, and, we were really successful at it. And so we're like, well, obviously we should post about this, because it doesn't seem that there's like a huge amount of people that are actually posting about this kind of stuff. So I was like, well, we got the footage from before, and might as well go ahead and piece it together and create this channel and stuff. And so that's exactly what we did. And we've been now on YouTube for the last year.
Yeah, actually, I think the day this podcast comes out, I think, is our year anniversary of when we started our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
It is a little bit surreal. Like we were talking earlier, we're kind of, it's just weird to be talking to you, because I feel like, especially Ray, I feel like, honestly, if you hadn't done what you did with Penn, I don't think we would be here at all.
Yeah.
And then now we're learning so much too from you, Juliana. And so it's just really crazy to be actually talking to you.
Yeah. Jessica was extremely nervous before starting this.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just weird.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, that's really great. I think that, you've come a long way, and it is a journey. I don't know what the end game is for you guys, but you guys look amazing. You're full of energy, and maybe what have you learned on the way that was surprising, and how that this is what you're going to do, or how do you feel right now after a couple years?
I mean, now here we are. I'm down 175 pounds, and Jessica is down like 125.
How tall are you, Brian?
I'm 6'6".
Okay, 6'6".
Oh wow, you're really tall.
So John
That's
Henney,
so cool.
John Henney, a Penn Jillette.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's yet another reason why Penn and I, like, we we're both those like tall, big guys.
We actually went and in September, so in September 2018, which we started in June 2018, we went and saw Penn and Teller, and Brian we both are in a picture with Penn, and we look so fat in that picture, and I can't wait to go back and take another one with him someday.
That's great.
Because when I saw the photo, I was like, oh yes, this is a horrible photo of us. We look so bad.
I hope we're there too when you take that new one. So I want all of us in there. So that would be a lot of fun.
But honestly, this whole thing, we're so much happier now than we've ever been in our entire lives. Our marriage, we've been married, 8 years now?
Yep.
And our marriage is honestly the best it's ever been. We just...
I got chills.
we communicate better. We did this together. This is something we did together. And we talk a lot on our channel because there's a lot of people out there who don't have a Brian or a Jessica. They don't have somebody to do this with. And we talk a lot about, does it help you to have a partner? Does it not help you? Sometimes it sabotages you.
Yes. We actually will not work with couples. We have a lot of people that come to us that want to do it together as a team, or mother-daughter, or a lot of two people that are in very similar situation. They really want to go down this path, and we refuse because most of the time there's a sabotage that happens. You could talk unintentionally, of course. And Ray and I are in the same situation where we're trying to go down. We just we get in each other's way big time.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I love about watching you guys doing it together and publicly, which I think adds to the accountability, which is really important.
I think one of the reasons why it works for us is because we're both kind of extreme opposites. I'm extremely outgoing. I'm social and all of that. Jessica is more of an introvert. I love to cook and I make music and all that kind of stuff, and Jessica can't play an instrument whatsoever. We're very, very opposite people. But the one thing that we do kind of both have in common is that we are these sort of extreme versions. And so because of that, we were able to balance each other out very, very well. But also one of the biggest reasons as to why we did succeed is because we both want each other to succeed.
Yes.
I don't really care about myself, but I care about her. And so I want her to do well. And, I never worried about myself, but she worries about me. And so that forces me to then go over and do better the next time, or something along those lines. And so that's why I think that we've been successful as a couple doing this is because we both just want the best for each other.
Well, and it's weird because lately, like I said, I've in the last couple of months, I feel like I've been sabotaging him.
That's true.
Thanks. But it's interesting because I'm glad it happened. Because in the previous times I've tried to lose weight, whenever I've gotten off track, I've never gotten back on. And so now I can prove, hey, I know so much more now. I have the tools I need. I know how to do this. I love eating this way. I don't want to eat any other way. I don't ever want to go back to my old way of eating. And we have so much fun developing recipes and all that stuff and eating. Yeah. And people always say oh, when are you going to be able to get back to eating regular, normal food?
Love that one.
No, the best one was one of my coworkers said real food.
Yes.
And I was like, define real food. And she said, pizza. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. So this is an important point because you hear us say very often, until the new diet is equally convenient, familiar, and enjoyable, you don't have a choice. One or more of those will dominate your plate. And, when you guys were talking about being in the throes of losing weight, when you were really both on your game and in it and making it happen, what's really incredible is that, and we see this also with our clients, there are so many foods that would be on plan, meaning they would be perfectly healthy, stuff that you would find in the Healthspan solution. And yet there are kinds of things that we really aren't going to be eating now because, when you get yourself overly eating for that entertainment, overly concerned about that, you sort of forget the fact, wait a minute, I don't really need to eat. I need to kind of eat enough to keep my digestive tract up, but I really don't, I've got energy. And if we look at food a little bit like a bank account, it's completely arbitrary to compare the calories in any given day to the calories out in any day. The truth is that is that it's really, what is your account balance? You know, when we're writing checks, you don't say, how much did I deposit today? No, you say, does my checking account have enough funds to cover it? And you guys had enough funds, but this idea that finding your new favorite food, I wonder, did that stick with you when Penn was talking about, you know, the idea that I can eat anything I want, but what I want is profoundly different? Did you guys find some of that change happening, and is it still happening? Like when you've had these rare and appropriates, are they as good as you remember them being?
Well, so it's funny you bring that up, because I remember when I heard or read Penn say that that I thought he was insane, actually, for saying it. It's like, you know, how in the world do you process like that information of like what you want is profoundly different now? Like when you're in that method of like, oh, I'm just eating all of this other stuff that I know to be good, that, you know, is like the stuff that I crave. And then it's like all of a sudden, you know, it's like somebody's telling you, well, you can eat something different. You can crave something different. And you're just like, that's impossible. That's no way that's going to happen. And so I remember him saying that, and I was just like, no, there's no chance that's gonna be me. Like, I'm still gonna want all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah. It's like, but I'm just gonna eat this healthy way just to lose weight. And then, I don't know, a couple months into it, after I was developing my own recipes, because I had started cooking other people's recipes, and I was like, I know I can make stuff better than this. Like, and so I just started doing it. And then like it sort of all fell into place. And then after a while I was like, yeah, I really don't want any of the other stuff anymore. I was like, I mean, I do, like, it'd be nice like to go out and, you know, have a nice meal or something like that. But now, like, if we ever go on vacation and we eat something, you know, quote unquote bad,
just say decadent.
Like, decadent. That's I like that much better than bad.
Right. We don't need to villainize food.
Yeah, we hate calling it bad, and we just never know how to say it.
That is one of my primary things that I've said is like, I'm not going to demonize food. Like, I'm not going to make food the enemy. That's one of my favorite quotes. But whenever I do go out and I have those decadent meals or whatever, you know, we get back home and I'm just like, yeah, okay, all right, let's make a salad.
Let's make a salad. Yeah.
We have chili usually a lot of times frozen in the freezer, and so whenever we get back from vacation, it's like boom, frozen chili.
Yeah. Yep, perfect. That's exactly what we recommend. It's like you have it ready, you just go back, you just go right back.
Yep.
Yeah, we always tell people you have to have a plan in place. Like before you go on a trip or something, you have to have a plan for when you get home, because if you get home and there's nothing to eat and that, you know, nothing healthy around, you're just going to extend your vacation and be like, oh, I can still eat this and keep going with it. And we've done that, you know, so many times. So
it's so true. And it's really,
Juliana
really
is
interesting.
Such a plant prepper.
Well, wait, let me actually say something. So like, this is the coolest. No, it's not cool. But here's how this has changed. I've always been like that, like neurotically stuffing my pantry, like everything. I've got beans and dried, like I like brag. I'm not brag. I'm proud of how prepared I am in my apartment back home. I've always been this way kind of, but everyone's always thought I was crazy and neurotic. And my ex-husband used to fight with me about it. And everyone used to think I was nuts because I always had stuff planned and prepared and stocked up. Well, here we are now in this really unexpected, unforeseen, mind-blowing change of time. And I feel like, see, you know, I'm also a germaphobe. So I feel like everything kind of came to fruition. All of my biggest fears came to fruition, but I'm prepared.
But you're also not in LA right now.
I know. All my beans are sitting there.
You should see her in Whole Foods. It's really kind of fun watching her walk around with this now. This is like in some sense, it's kind of her sweet spot.
It's like my little I told you so.
It's I told you so. It's really great. So.
Not that I ever saw this was going to happen, but yeah. No, and true, my stuff is all in my apartment staying, you know, by itself, unfortunately.
Man, apparently you and Jessica are cut from the same cloth, because that's exactly the way that she is. Like, it's always, you know, she's planning ahead. She's got all the stuff. If you could see our pantry right now, it's just like I mean, we've been eating it for 2 weeks, and we still haven't really made a dent in it. So.
Hey, now.
And
But
the
that's
other
the
side
funny
of it,
thing.
the other side of it is the idea that I also feel a lot of solace in the fact that if somebody said go right now today, as long as I have water and a multivitamin, 30 days from now, I would be okay. I know I would be okay because
Without
I've done
anything.
that. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not that you would want to do that, but
No.
I'm going to tie this into where you are food-wise, Jessica, because this is such an important point that you're making about going out, the decadent meals, and coming back. And I want to even take it to the next level, but is that, as soon as it's going to be okay, as soon as it's going to be okay, that no one's taking anything from you and everything's going to be fine, another part of your brain kicks in, that reasonable part of your brain, where you say, okay, I need to eat something. Because let's face it, we evolved in a world of scarcity. Not getting enough is par for the game in terms of, our human ancestry and every other organism. In fact, the only species that are obese and chronically ill are us and the pets that we keep warm and overfed. They get little doggy diabetes because we feed them that way, just like we do to each other. But the point I was going to make here is that in terms of, we jokingly call it plant prepping, but in terms of preparation, the foods that are on the shelves right now are the kinds of foods we ate. Yes, there was some rice and some beans that sort of disappeared for a while, et cetera, but those will come back.
It's so sad that it took this extreme situation to make beans so popular. That part makes me kind of sad.
Yeah. So my question back to you guys, in terms of coming back, first, can you tell me about some really good, healthy food choices you made on the road? So I want you to answer that question first. And then secondly, I want to hear at least one story, because I know you have to have one, of some really decadent kind of thing that you wanted to have that afterwards you said, meh. And then third, so I've got 3 questions stacked up. What's your favorite new thing to eat now that's on plan?
All right.
Okay.
All right. So, wait, what was the first one again?
So the first one was, the best choice you made on the road, just when you were doing it.
Honestly, I think we were in London over the Christmas break, this past Christmas break, and we found this place called Vantra.
Yeah.
And they actually have like a buffet of oil-free plant-based food.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
it was amazing.
It was amazing. And so
best food I've ever had.
The best that we've actually ever, the most healthy I think we've done on a trip was our trip to London, because it's so easy to find vegan stuff there. Of course, a lot of it does have oil and stuff like that, but there are also a lot of good healthy options. But when we found that place, that was just like heaven.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. So
but we also did. Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the second thing was that decadent meal that wasn't as good as you thought it was. Have you had one of those yet?
A few months ago, I was convinced. So in St. Louis, we have what we call St. Louis style pizza.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's E024 is like the most popular.
I
the
know
Provel,
E024. Yep.
cut into squares.
Yep. Been there,
right?
done that.
Okay. So I was convinced that I needed to have E024, and I just wanted E024. And so I got it delivered because I was too late, and I don't like to pay for delivery. I don't like to pay for parking or delivery. So I was like desperate, though. I had to have it. And so I ordered a delivery and I ate it. And I remember sitting on the couch right over there where I ate it. And afterwards just thinking like, that was not that good. And it was not worth it at all. But yet again, like in the last few months when I've been doing kind of not as well, I had one moment where I wanted to get E024. And then I thought, whenever I have a moment like that where I've eaten something that I used to love that no longer gives me any kind of, doesn't do anything for me, I try to remember. Sometimes I even write down notes in my phone about it because I want to remember that feeling. And then the next time when I'm like, oh, I want E024, then I go back to that feeling in my head. I'm like, no, I don't want it because it's not going to be worth it in the end. So that's kind of for me.
Yeah. For me, like as far as like the decadent meals go, like, whenever we go out, I'm generally like, I'm going to absolutely pick something that I know I'm going to love. And so I don't get a lot of that because I love getting like new things and trying them out. So there, I don't really have a lot of like overlap. But I will tell you this, that I mean, I remember before I never really did a lot of sugar, like just straightforward like candy bars or any of that kind of stuff. But when I would get them, like I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so for me though, like after switching, like I would occasionally get a candy bar of some kind that I used to love, whenever we would do like a rare and appropriate kind of thing, or when we were traveling or whatever. And like I'd eat it now and it was just like, okay, like it was good, but like this isn't filling me up or anything. It's like, it's literally just a taste. And I was like, I'd rather have something that tastes good and fills me up at the same time.
What about that one road trip that we went on and I made you eat like a bunch of fudge and then candy bars and it was all straight sugar? Cause I can do sugar. I can eat
I
sweet
felt
things
so sick after that.
Like I can eat them and it doesn't bother me at all, but he like eats one sweet thing and he's just like, I feel horrible.
It's like, it's just, I don't feel very good after that. But you give me like any of the salty, oily, savory stuff, like that's, I can eat that like all day and doesn't really affect me all that much. But like I said, I don't really eat a lot of that stuff now anyway.
And so new favorite foods?
New favorite foods, as in like since we started this,
stuff
like recent?
New things that you've come across in the last 2 years that you love, that you prepare over and over in the kitchen, or something that you just love to eat now that may be a surprise.
Well, honestly, the simple fact that I'm eating vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower anyway, I always hated that kind of stuff before, and now I can pop that stuff raw.
Yeah. Are you surprised that your palate has changed so much?
Actually, I think it's kind of interesting because I've had this conversation with numerous people. It's like, it's like, like I said before, when you're eating that other way, you don't realize that your taste can change. And so it becomes this like impossible goal. Like, oh, I'm actually going to like vegetables now. Like that, you're crazy. Like, but when you switch over, like it's exactly what they say happens. Like you start to actually enjoy the stuff that you're eating. And especially if you can prepare it in a good way. I mean, like roasted veggies for us is just like one of the best things ever. And then speaking of that, I was then also going to add on that recently, though, I discovered Brussels sprouts.
Yes.
Brussels sprouts
actually,
before,
if I could get to we're sitting in front of the refrigerator, but we have the most massive bowl of Brussels sprouts in our refrigerator right now. It's like ridiculous.
Did you see my tweet about nobody being they're not being a run on Brussels sprouts? There's this great.
For me, it's been a lot of different fruits, which sounds really silly, but I could not stand strawberries. I liked the strawberry flavor, but not like actual strawberries. And I also couldn't stand oranges before we started eating this way. And now like I'm like really sad right now that I don't have any strawberries because I'm not going out to like shop for a lot of fresh stuff right now, obviously with the whole thing going on. And I've been making myself oatmeal too, which I hated oatmeal. Like I hated any kind of oats with any, I didn't like it at all. And now like I could eat oatmeal for every single meal if I wanted to. Like it is, my palate has changed so much. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy how much it does change.
And I think one of the best things for me though is that like before I always used to love cooking anyway, whatever it happened to be, but I never really got super into cooking. And so when we switched over, like that's basically all I was doing. It's like I was developing recipes. I was trying to figure stuff out. And so through that, I got to experiment a lot. And that's when I discovered that I absolutely love cooking and experimenting with flavors to try and figure stuff out and how to craft a meal together and make everything work and all of that. I mean, like that's for me has been the best thing about switching over. Yeah, I lost a bunch of weight, don't get me wrong, but discovering this absolute joy and love of cooking, like I just didn't have that before.
Yeah, Brian, the same thing happened to me. That was exactly what happened. I had to learn how to cook. Actually, I had a deadline for a book, and they said 50 recipes, and I almost like fainted because I had 6 weeks to write an entire book and learn how to cook and teach and actually do recipe development. And I had 2 toddlers at the time. So that was crazy. But so what are some of your favorite recipes? And you could, if you guys want to link to if you've done a video on it, or what have you discovered, and what are some of your favorite recipes right now that you developed?
Well, I can tell you this, that the most popular recipes that we've done are our super smoky hummus and the chili recipe that I developed. Those are like the 2 most popular ones that we developed, and they are 2 of the ones that we still eat all the time. We make our hummus every time we run out. We make another batch, and then like for chili, like I make that at least, I don't know, once, twice a month ever since we started.
Yeah, I think we actually filmed a video that's coming out today. Well, it won't be when you're hearing this, but that I gave Brian a box of mystery ingredients from our pantry and had him put together a recipe with it. And so it's just
how fun.
Yeah. And he had to develop a recipe. So it's fun because he puts together
on the spot.
He puts together the recipes, and I'm the one that does all the website and like blog posts and all that kind of stuff. So I literally have this like transcription of the recipe that he has put together, and I have to make it something that people could follow. And so it's just, I mean, if you could see the chicken scratch I'm dealing with here of the recipe. So I'm constantly trying to get him to measure things because I'm like, Brian, you have to measure. And he just likes to cook. But it's interesting because since we started doing this channel, and I think you talked about it a little bit on one of your podcasts, when you were like testing out the recipes for the book, it's weird because I think actually it kind of throws us off our game sometimes with eating, because in reality, we actually eat so boring and like, we eat the same thing all the time over and over again. Like people are always asking us for a what we eat in a day video. And Brian always jokes, it'll just be the same video over and over.
So I basically eat the same breakfast every day. Like lunch is kind of interchangeable with whatever soup I happen to make that week. And then dinner is a salad.
Yeah, we always have a giant salad for dinner. And so it's interesting because when we're trying to develop these recipes and try out new stuff to share with other people, it kind of throws us off our game because we're not used to being that fancy and like experimental in the kitchen on a regular basis. And so it's a weird balance to have.
Yeah.
You're looking at me. I know there's a lot of directions we could go with this.
It's just so much you. It sounds like, just like you.
Exactly like
I'm just
me.
saying.
Like when I'm so when I'm in LA, we go back and forth. I mostly go back and forth because our work is really here in Huntsville, and Ray likes to have me hold. I think he told California to shut down so that I was stuck here for extra long. But when I'm at home, I have literally probably 2 recipes that I will eat a little bit of each every day, and I love that. I'm happy. I don't like going into recipe development mode because I like what I like, and it's like it's okay if I have the same thing. I don't care. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just happy. And when I'm here, and Ray is the opposite. Like he won't even, my one recipe that I've been doing as a go-to for a long time now is I made a version of our mushroom wild rice bisque in our book. I've made it with cauliflower rice and like loaded it with mushrooms because I love mushrooms. So when I'm home, I will just make huge batches of mushroom cauliflower rice. It's kind of like a thing. My friend came over and I made it for her, and she's like, oh, it's like tastes like Thanksgiving. And I will just eat that over and over and over again. And I'll have my big salad. So I'll do both. And while I've been here, Ray will not let me buy cauliflower rice. He's like, no. But he's the opposite.
Oh, come on, Ray.
I know. He's like holding me back. It makes me want to go back to California just to have cauliflower rice. But he's the opposite because he loves a challenge. I can't wait to watch your video because that sounds so fun. He loves to have like very few ingredients or whatever is left in the fridge, and he sees it as a challenge. I mean, he is technically trained as a chef. I'm not. And so he will just whip out these incredible meals. In fact, as soon as we hang up, I'm going to be like putting him in the kitchen to work because I'm hungry. It's time to eat. And he makes me these amazing dishes, but he loves the challenge of not having a stocked up kitchen and just having to go for it. And he does come up with incredible recipes like that.
And Jessica, to underscore what you're saying, the story for those maybe who didn't hear that part, when we were preparing for the book and we're making something like 3 or 4 recipes in a day and we're testing them, and, you know, we didn't have a staff that we hired, and we didn't farm anything out, and we didn't go to anybody else to help us with development. We started with our 4 categories: soup, salad, sides, and sweets. And we said, we're going to sort of stack this up. So we started with this goal, 25, 25, 25, 25. And some of them are recipes that we had both had before. But here's the point is, we were eating 3 or 4 times a day, which I normally eat it once a day.
Yeah.
Maybe I eat twice. She likes to eat earlier than I do, so she'll want to eat earlier, and sometimes we'll eat together later, or I'll eat together early, but then I'll end up eating later. It's just a difference in how we respond to food. But when we were doing these recipes, we loved the food we were making, you know, and Brian, you said something when we were talking earlier, just the idea that, you know, in our cookbook, you could see that we really tried to put some thought into doing this a little bit differently. And we loved the food and we ate it. And when the recipe didn't work out, we would make it again. And of course we didn't waste the other one. We sort of doctored it up and finished that. So
we don't want to waste
6
food.
weeks, for about 6 weeks, we were eating an enormous amount of food, and we put on a few pounds, but not like we would have had it been, you know, the Food Network type cookbooks, right?
Or the next book that we're writing,
Right,
by the way. We
so-
have to be careful with this next book that we're going to be writing. We have to prepare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We want to do rare and appropriate next. So that's that's what we would love to do.
Right?
So
Dangerous.
I feel like we're always in recipe development mode. I feel like earlier today I was thinking about it and I was like, I feel like we're always writing a cookbook, like a never ending cookbook, because with the YouTube channel, people are always wanting, like, they're like, more recipes. And we love sharing that with people because we love showing. The whole point of the YouTube channel was just to show, like, hey, we're just these weird, goofy people who did this. And honestly, I could tell you that we are 2 of the people who are furthest away from somebody, if you told me 2 years ago who would be doing this or would be eating like this, the fact that it blows my mind, honestly, because it's just, we're so far removed from who would have been doing this. And so I just like to show people anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And you can make food that does taste good. You don't have to sacrifice on taste. And so we love sharing those recipes because we know that, like, not everybody is good at putting together those, you know, not everybody is a Brian who can just go in the kitchen and be like, oh, this tastes good together. Like, I can't do that. And I think we might actually do another one where Brian gives me ingredients and I have to make something. That'll be really funny.
You guys could do a showdown, the 2 of you. Not that you want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that with Ray.
We've done that. We did we've done videos where we'll each make a dish and then people have to vote which one they would want. And it's very interesting. I feel like Brian's always going to win everything because everyone loves Brian. But
that oatmeal challenge one was pretty good because Jessica had this oatmeal recipe she'd been developing for like a month.
Yeah.
And I threw mine together on the morning of.
Not fair.
And like I totally won on the voting on YouTube, but Jessica won on Instagram.
I won on Instagram, so whatever.
Hers looked prettier than mine.
Yeah, because I got the real good Instagram photos going on. But
yeah, well, we were excited with your competition, and it was so funny. I already knew the answer, and you guys will have to watch their nacho cheese showdown or whatever you call it. What did you call it? The Great Showdown or the Great Throwdown?
So yeah, every once in a while we do what we call a throwdown.
You have to do it in the voice.
So yeah. So each one that we do, because I've been working in radio and done voiceover and stuff like that, I've developed my announcer voice. And
Let's hear it.
When we did this one, I said, you know, like, well, we haven't done something done it in a while, so we thought it was time for a cheese throwdown.
Yeah,
I love that.
He's got like the monster truck voice down. He does all these silly voices, and people love that on the videos, but. Yeah. We try to balance the silliness with the, you know, and then there's ones where I'll end up crying. And actually I cried the one time I cried was over potatoes on the 1 year anniversary of us starting this diet, we decided to film a video of us eating a plain baked potato. And the smell alone of that potato brought up like these emotions in me. I was literally crying, and people comment on that video like, are you seriously crying over a potato? But the whole psychological thing that we went through during those 2 weeks came back to me associated with that smell and that taste. And it was crazy to think how far we'd come in a year. And it was just insane.
Absolutely. Anyway. It's very emotional. And that's what we tell our clients, like people that want to work with us. We're like, you know what? It's not about the food. Anyone could lose weight. It's not about that. And we want to make sure we actually kind of interview and have our clients interview us before we get started, because this is a deeply emotional journey and there's so much associated with food. I talk about that. My TED Talk was about that. It's about how deeply rooted food is in our threads, it's our culture and our relationships and our family and our history. Everything about food is so deep, and it's you can't avoid that, especially when you're going through a major transformation like this. So we want to make sure our clients feel comfortable with us and that we feel comfortable with them, because it all comes out. It's very personal, and that's not at all surprising that you experience that. There's like an association with the beginning of that, and it's an anniversary. So I think that's beautiful that you shared that.
Yeah.
We should have just called that video "Girl Cries While Eating Plain Baked Potato."
There you go. Yeah. So,
but I have to say, if I can just say, is we got our little book behind us here.
Oh,
you guys seriously, like, this book, ever since I got it, like, I feel like I want to like put it under my pillow at night and just like sleep.
Oh, Jessica, I'm gonna cry now.
Like, you're weird. No, like, seriously, like, we have so many books, but this one has been the one that's been sitting out. It's like on our table, it's on our couch, it keeps traveling around with us everywhere. We just keep looking at it, and it's like like I said on our video, you can just tell that you guys poured your soul into this, and you have such a different take on it. And I love the balance between the science, because like I'm not a science person, but Brian is Mr. like he's the science nerd of the two of us. And
Ray, I've been to Huntsville many a time.
Oh, that's cool.
he's into the science side, and so the fact that you put it in there so someone like me could read it and understand it, and the recipes, like, it's just there's recipes that go around in the plant-based community, and you see it's like the same kind of thing redone a million times, which is what we're probably doing on our channel. Right? And then there's like your recipes are just, it's a whole nother thing. And like, I can't wait to get in. We haven't made a bunch of them just because we literally are always trying to develop our own recipes right now, and we're so busy, but I can't wait to try out like every single recipe in that book.
Yeah, I think the chana masala is next on my list.
Oh my God, I like have chills. Like we didn't even ask you to say this, obviously,
No.
but it means so much to us, because that was what we were hoping for, and like that's like the perfect. We're so grateful. Thank you for saying that.
And I love that you keep Juliana, whenever you talk on the podcast about the book and how beautiful it is, like it is like seriously a piece of art.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna cry.
It is so beautifully done. Like I just, and you guys are, I love what you guys are doing and putting out there, and it's just for people like us who are just trying to fight the good fight every day and figure out what this new lifestyle is for us, to have, your podcast and your book and all that stuff to follow along with. It helps so much. And you guys are touching like so many lives with it.
And I tell you this, we bought this book like before we even knew that you guys knew that we existed. So,
Well, I pre-ordered it the first time that the link came up.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's great.
Like,
thank you.
I mean,
Thank
there was no chance that we weren't going to get this book and we weren't going to go through it and stuff like that, because, I mean, here we are, almost 2 years down this adventure that we're on. And, we kind of like, it has fundamentally changed our lives, and more than just the fact that we have a YouTube channel that's fairly successful. We are completely sort of different people now. I mean, not like emotionally or any of that kind of stuff, but just like the way that we look at our lives is completely different. Like, and I think I've told this to Jessica before, that this is the first time in my entire life that I can see a future.
Oh my
And
gosh,
that
so
is
profound.
That is crazy to hear. And I'm very, very grateful to be a part of that journey, even if it's a small part. That is just amazing. We love hearing this.
Yeah.
It's all just those, pebbles on the lake. You created a ripple that impacted somebody else, that caused me to watch a YouTube video and start on this journey that we've been on.
And now you're rippling out to helping other people.
And now we've connected with you guys, and it's like,
well, and when we get comments from people, now that we've been doing this for a year, we'll get comments from people saying, oh, I saw you guys on YouTube 6 months ago, and here I am now doing this, and you guys were my inspiration. And it's just mind-boggling to feel like you could have that effect on somebody. And we just love being able to share, everything. I wish that I'd known what I know so much longer ago, like earlier in my life.
Yep.
Me too.
But I'm also glad that I went through everything I did on the way to get here, because I feel like it wouldn't have meant as much to me as it does now, if that makes any sense. And so now I just want to share that with everybody, but I also don't want to force it on people. Yeah. So the channel is a good way for, hey, if you want to come and look at it, you can. If not, then you don't have to watch it.
So with that, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your station and your channels, and then we will see about how we can all connect back up on this.
Yeah, so our YouTube channel is Krocks in the Kitchen. That's Krocks with a K. We always have to say. Yeah. If you go to youtube.com/Krocks in the Kitchen, you'll find us. We're also at Krocks in the Kitchen on Instagram, Facebook, and then I forgot what our Twitter handle is because I think it's
Krocks Kitchen because I just tweeted you guys. I think it's just Krocks Kitchen.
It's Krocks Kitchen. Yes, I'm so bad about logging into Twitter. But yes, we're all over there. So we love people to come and connect with us, and yeah.
And I mean, we love interacting with any of the viewers or listeners out there. Seriously, you can pretty much ask us anything and we'll give you an answer, hopefully.
So our plan is, we've been chatting with you guys about it, I know, is that we will collect some questions on our end from our audience and then have you guys on our show on YouTube, and you can answer some of those questions.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we can't wait. Thank you guys so much. So inspiring.
So that was fantastic.
Absolutely inspiring.
Krocks in the Kitchen.
Yes, check them out. Thank you all so much for joining us on this leafy green path to good health.
It's always the food, so remember,
keep eating right.
Thank you for listening to Science and Saucery. For more details about the content in today's show, or to contact Juliana and Ray, please visit us at healthspansolution.com.